Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Zed, and welcome to this video. This is last week I watched number 4. Before I get into that, I already recorded this video. I recorded it right after watching my last movie of last week. But I was so tired in that video. I couldn't tell you why. I had just woken up a couple hours prior. I'm usually a day sleeper and I'm awake most of the nights. And I just woke up. So I don't know why I was so tired, and I was just so sluggish and I could barely keep my eyes open, and I just felt so heavy. And it was a sluggish video. And after I got done recording that, I was like, man, I don't know why I'm so sluggish, why I'm so tired. So I went, turned off all the lights, laid back down, and while laying there, I thought to myself, shit, I ate a fuck ton of CBD gummies during my last movie. And I was just fucked up. Like, I was tired. I was just calm to the core, and I was just out. So I took a couple hour nap, and now I'm back to record. I feel much better. So without any further ado, let's get started with The Good Dinosaur. So The Good Dinosaur is one of the only Pixar movies I have never seen. I have seen most Pixar movies multiple times, but I've never seen The Good Dinosaur. It was one that I remember watching reviews for when it first came out. Notably, the scenery of the movie was beautiful, but the story was a bit lackluster compared to other Pixar movies. So I just never got around to watching it. But a buddy of mine and me decided the other day, we had both never seen the movie, and he was catching up on a bunch of Pixar movies he had never seen, and this was the last one. So we watched it together. We enjoyed it. It, again, is kind of a lackluster Pixar story, but that's not to say it's bad. When it comes to Pixar, they are like at a top tier level for storytelling. So when they make a lackluster story, it's very easy to tell. When you have movies like Monsters Inc. and Toy Story, Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, those are masterpieces, but you know, when you get one that's a bit lackluster, it's easier to tell. So The Good Dinosaur is a fun time. I would watch it again. It might be a while, but the sceneries are beautiful, and also you have T-Rex cowboys, which is absolutely incredible. Sam Elliott is a T-Rex cowboy. I don't know if you guys heard me or not, so I'm gonna walk back in and tell you this again. Ready? Okay. Sam Elliott is a T-Rex cowboy. You understand that? That's amazing. That is storytelling. So yeah, I love that part. Moving on. Basically, I started off the week with 3 dinosaur movies I hadn't seen before. So it's no surprise and it's no secret that Jurassic Park is my favorite movie of all time. I love that movie so very much. And when Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom came out, I was very, very excited, but ultimately was disappointed to hear what fans, critics, and regular moviegoers were saying about it. So I avoided it like the plague. I did not want to dislike a Jurassic Park movie. And that was kind of my downfall for the past 2 years, always avoiding it. My buddy left his copy of it here with me for like 2 months, and I just never watched it. But finally, I said, F it. I'm gonna do it. Excuse me. I'm gonna do it. So I did it. I watched it, and I enjoyed it. So I wish I would have watched it 2 years ago, because I've kind of been missing out. I can tell why particular fans, critics, whatever, might not have liked it. And that's okay. Again, a lot of these Jurassic Park movies, I feel like Jurassic Park and Jurassic World are the two that people are kind of okay with. At least that's my common consensus. I know people also enjoy The Lost World, but when you love something so much, it's like Star Wars. When you love something so much, the fans are the worst enemy of the product. So I actually enjoyed Fallen Kingdom. It was a good time. So I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Next up, we have 1998's Godzilla. So Matthew Broderick, and another Matthew Broderick is the star of my other favorite movie of all time, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. So I've always been excited to watch this. Never gotten around to it. I've probably seen bits and pieces as a kid, and also just through videos on YouTube, but I've never watched the full thing. And yeah, it's bad. It's not a good movie. It's not a good Godzilla movie. I should say this: it is not a good Godzilla movie, but it's a good monster movie. If you allow yourself to think that the monster in this is a different dinosaur creature, you'll have a pretty good time. It's kind of hard to picture Godzilla as an iguana. You know, that's kind of hard to do. But overall, I just allowed myself to enjoy it. I didn't take it too seriously. I didn't take it at face value as a Godzilla movie. And for that, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Next up, we have one of my new favorite movies of all time, Alfred Hitchcock's Rear Window. Now, Rear Window is a very special movie to me now, because I love movies that take place in a singular place. I love getting to know the space around you and the characters. You get very intimate with them. It's a very secluded, very intimate space, and you really get to know it. And with Rear Window, it stars what is it, Jimmy Stewart? I can't remember his name. James Stewart. Jimmy Stewart. James Stewart, and he plays a character called Jeff. And Jeff is a photographer who has a broken leg, and he's on the mends. So he's homebound. He can't go anywhere. He has a nurse that comes over every single day to massage him and give him vitamins, minerals. I don't know exactly what she's supposed to do for him, but it's mostly like massages and sandwiches. But during this, he's kind of just in a wheelchair all day, and he people watches outside of his apartment window. And there's so many different characters that he watches, and one day he suspects his neighbor of murder. So the whole movie basically is him trying to convince people that his neighbor murdered his wife. And it's super compelling, and it's so... The entire movie takes place in his apartment. The camera never, ever leaves his apartment. And by that, like, it's a singular room that he's in. The only time the camera leaves is when it's pointing out his window from the vantage point of him, or out his camera lens or his binoculars. It's always out the window. It's never like, if somebody leaves the apartment, the camera never follows that person out anywhere in a new space. And it's incredible. I love that. It's just super compelling. And I found myself just so intrigued, and just like, you, the audience, knows for a fact that this is the case. Like, this guy murdered his wife, but the entire movie is just trying to convince people, trying to get the evidence for all this, and it's so good. The only part I did not like was the editing choices at the very end, when the killer confronts our characters, our investigators. There's a couple editing choices I did not too much care for, but overall, it's one of my new favorite movies, and definitely my favorite Hitchcock. So, yeah. Speaking of Hitchcock, right after that, I checked out Vertigo. So, Vertigo as a movie, I've heard a lot about. You know, Hitchcock is really well known for Psycho. He reinvented or invented the slasher genre. And Vertigo is one of those movies that I've heard a lot about. I've heard it's his masterpiece. That it's just, there's a great twist in it, just like a lot of Hitchcock movies, there's a great twist. But unfortunately, I did not enjoy this. This movie also stars James Stewart, and basically he is a private investigator who has a scare of heights. So he has acrophobia. After the death of one of his comrades, he quits the force, and he retires. Before he can retire, one of his old buddies hires him to follow around his wife, who he suspects is under possession of a ghost that is trying to kill her. Kind of cool, especially for a 1958 movie. That's kind of a crazy concept. But soon you find out that this is not the case. This is a setup from the husband to basically kill his wife so that he can inherit her fortune. And then the movie just kind of takes a turn where it's just the main character trying to recreate his lost love, who really was never lost, and it's just, I didn't care for it. The first half, though slow, though just a lot of scenes of James Stewart's character following around the wife, it was super interesting and compelling, because you're like, is this actually happening? Like, what is going on with this woman? And then it's just a hoax. It's just a hoax to murder his wife. And for that, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I didn't too much care for the twist of the whole thing as much as the majority does. And then next up, I watched the Netflix Toho Godzilla trilogy, which consists of Godzilla Planet of the Monsters, Godzilla City on the Edge of Battle, and then Godzilla the Planet Eater. And I gotta be honest, these are super underwhelming. I was expecting a lot more than what we got. With anime, they can be kind of hit or miss, especially for a lot of American audiences. Now, I do enjoy anime to a certain extent. It's not something I watch all the time, but I can appreciate it when done well. And this, though it has great animation, it's underwhelming because Godzilla isn't a character. And when I say that, there's a lot of like the Godzilla movie, the second Godzilla movie that we did in the States. One of the big complaints is that the human element was really lacking, but people really liked Godzilla. But Godzilla wasn't really in the movie enough. Now, I understand that. I love that movie. It's one of my favorites. And this movie is kind of the same, where the human characters are the main focus, but Godzilla is kind of a secondary character. But this Godzilla has no character. It's bland. It's dull. You don't care about Godzilla. You're not angry at him. You don't feel bad for him. You're not sorry for him. You're not sad for him. You don't think he's a bad guy. You don't think he's a good guy. He's just nothing. There's no character development whatsoever for Godzilla throughout all 3 of these movies. He is just a character that they want dead, so that the humans want dead, so humanity can come back to Earth and reclaim it for their own. That is it. it sucks. It's boring. It's just the same old repeating lines over and over and over and over and over again. At the very end, after humanity comes to terms with Godzilla being on their planet, the main character kills himself because he can't come to terms with it. And he thinks that because he can't, that he's going to hold humanity back from reclaiming Earth, the new way. It sucks. So I gave, what is it called? Planet of the Monsters 3 stars. City on the Edge of Battle 3.5 stars, and then The Planet Eater 3 stars. Even Ghidorah couldn't fucking save these movies. Ghidorah, I don't know what the hell that Ghidorah was, but it wasn't good. Let's take a little sippy sip break. Next up, because it was trending on Netflix, I watched Outbreak, starring Dustin Hoffman and Morgan Freeman, also Rene Russo, and it's the story of a small town that breaks out in a virus that is sorry, I don't know what happened. My app just crashed, and I'm like trying to read stuff off. Breaks out of a virus after a African monkey is transported back to the States, who is the carrier of this virus. And it's a very deadly virus. It jumps from host to host very quickly, and it also mutated during that. So the movie is basically about these I can't remember what they're called. CDC? No, what are they called? The hazmat people. Crap. I can't remember what they're called now. But all the virus doctor scientists are basically against the virus, against the people in the city, against the U.S. Army, and against time. It's great. It's compelling. It's scary. The comparison between the two, between the coronavirus and this virus, they're not comparable. The one in the movie is way more scarier and deadly, but it's trending, and I wanted to watch it, and I didn't let it. I didn't let it induce any panic in me because I knew it wasn't comparable. But overall, it was a good movie, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed it. Next up, I watched Friday. I really enjoyed it. I grew up in a similar community. My parents were split up, so when I was with my dad, this is the kind of stuff that me and my dad would do with his friends. We'd go over to a neighborhood that everyone knew everyone. There was always a bunch of different characters to people watch, and they would sit on the porch and smoke or talk, whatever, and we would just relax. And that's kind of what we did. And there's a lot of people in this movie that I kind of interacted with growing up. So it was really great. I love the movie. It's like neighborhood politics, what's the word I'm looking for? Not neighborhood politics, but that's like the urban neighborhood, how it was and how it was for me growing up. So for that, I loved it. I thought it was great. That's the first time for me watching Friday, actually. So I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Next up, I watched Next Friday, which is bad. Not good. Took everything that I liked about the first one and didn't do that. And it's on purpose. They took Craig, Ice Cube's character, out of, the urban setting and put him in rich white people neighborhoods that aren't filled of rich white people, which I felt like was kind of like the premise of it was they're taking an urban black man and putting him out of his element, but it kind of wasn't out of his element. It was just a bigger house. I don't know. I like Day Day and I liked Roach. Craig's character felt different than the first one, and it lacked Chris Tucker, which was just a mistake. I don't know. 2 out of 5 stars. And then after that, I watched Friday After Next. And this was actually more like the original, back in a similar setting, similar problems, similar people, and I liked it a bit more. Again, it didn't capture what the original did. You know, the original took place on a porch on basically one street the entire movie. I like those very small settings or where the movie takes place in like a singular place. Friday After Next was okay. It was a bit funnier. It's a Christmas movie. Didn't know that. And I definitely laughed a bit more than I did in the other, or in Next Friday. But again, wasn't too, wasn't like anything special. So I gave Friday After Next 3 out of 5 stars. Next up, we have a movie that I was looking forward to for a while, ever since its first trailer, and that is Guns Akimbo. This stars Daniel Radcliffe, and I did not remember what this movie was about, apparently, because it was not what I thought it was. But I enjoyed it. It's your very generic, guy who's in love with a girl. Guy gets in trouble with people he shouldn't get in trouble with. The people steal or kidnap the girlfriend, and he has to man up and stand up for himself to get his girl back, and he does. Spoiler alert. Kind of, I guess. It's a good movie. It's definitely stylized. The acting is way over the top. The characters are very colorful. Lots of bloodshed. It's a very stylized movie, and I enjoyed it. It wasn't what I thought it was going to do. What it was going to do, like zoinks. What it was going to do, but what it did, I enjoyed, and for that, I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next up, I watched. Where's it at? The Longest Yard. Now, I didn't know until I was doing research for this movie, trying to look up the poster and such, that this was a remake of another Burt Reynolds movie. And he's also in the remake as a coach type character. I enjoyed this movie. It's an underdog story at its core. The inmates are always bullied by the correctional officers, and this is their chance to get back at them, and also maybe win a football game. So it's a decent enough story. There's so many familiar faces. It's decently funny, and I more or less wanted to watch it because I watch a lot of the Joe Rogan, Joey Diaz podcasts, and I wanted to see Joey Diaz in this movie, and I wasn't disappointed. He was. I basically watched every single clip he was in already on the podcast, but getting more context to it, it was good. So I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next up, I watched Anger Management with Adam Sandler and Jack Nicholson, and I wanted to knock Jack Nicholson out. And that's because he did a good job. His character, his job throughout the entire movie is to make you dislike him. And he did just that. I had a sinking feeling in my stomach throughout this entire movie because I know the similar feelings that Adam Sandler has gone through. Not with the whole being pushed around by everybody, but when it comes to his relationship, him feeling like his relationship is being attacked and being sabotaged. I understand that, and it gave me a big sinking feeling in my stomach watching that. But in the end, the movie does what it does, and it makes you go, "Oh, that's kind of shitty, but it's okay." So I gave Anger Management 3.5 out of 5 stars. And then last but not least, the movie that I got real tired while watching was Dunkirk. I've never seen this movie. I've owned it for the better half of like 2 years. And I finally decided to give it a watch tonight. And I wasn't disappointed. War movies are inherently hard to watch, especially when they're based around true events. Because sometimes you forget while watching it that this actually happened. And when you come to that realization during certain parts of the movie, it's scary. It's terrifying. And you get very troubled and emotional. And that happens several times throughout the movie. The movie has very little dialogue throughout, and the music is very meticulous in where it's placed. These are real events. This is a very real depiction of what happened. And I know during screenings of this movie, people who survived Dunkirk, they had a screening for those people, and they said this is probably the closest depiction that has ever come to the real events that happened at Dunkirk. So very high praise to Christopher Nolan and his team for really bringing to life those tragic events. And it's definitely not the most tragic war movie where it's a lot of bloodshed and a lot of just horror and horrific moments, but it's scary. There's how many men are trapped? 400,000 men are trapped on the beaches of Dunkirk, and they're surrounded by German armies, and they have to get out somehow. So all of the other countries send civilians into war on their boats and such to pick up the men and bring them to safety. It's compelling. It's scary. It's real. It's the shell shock that you see these individuals go through, and just the real casualties of war, not the machine guns ripping through 100 men in 20 seconds. I'm talking about the days that you lay there hoping and praying for your safety, while you hear gunshots and bombs are being dropped on you, and you're huddled up in small spaces in the cold, and you're wet and you're dirty, and that's war. So for that, I gave Dunkirk 4 out of 5 stars. And that's it. That's all I watched this week. It was a good amount of movies. I wish I would have loved more. But besides the Godzilla movies and Next Friday, there weren't a lot that I disliked, so that's good. But anyways, guys, that is pretty much it for this video. That's what I watched last week. Thank you for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and until next time, guys, I'll be seeing you later. Peace.